All right, so it's preparing. All right. So we're live, preparing.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. This is Shanya with the Mama Bear Show. Today is already the 16th day of the month. This month is almost over of October. You're with me joining the Mama Bear Show. And have my guest, Miss Amelia Leon, with me. We have a topic that I know when I was growing up, it was like, ooh, a forbidden topic in my household. How to have the conversation, the talk, or be comfortable with talking with your teens, preteens, and teens about sex education. Right. The topic has always been misguided or I guess I want to say underlined and just not talked about enough. And then it's too late. Sometimes it becomes too late. And again, it's not that parents don't want to, they just don't know how to address it. So I'm going to give you a little bit about Miss Amelia. She and I are co-workers with our organization, Her Health First. Chime in, Miss Amelia. She's educated in a variety of subjects, but I do know she does sections with the organization with teens around the topic of sex education we're talking. So she's an expert, and I believe you have a degree as well in the topic.
Yes.
Okay, absolutely. So again, I want to thank her for joining in and being the host this evening. And we're just going to dive into it. Please, my audience, if you have questions, I have Mr. Lucas who's going to be checking the chat. If you put your questions in the chat, he'll let me know and then we can address them. Do not be shy, as well as just let me know and I'll take a pause and then you can ask your questions directly. Again, this is a topic that I feel that we need to be aware of. I feel like, again, coming up, older generation, it was taboo. You don't talk about it. It's not okay. And my children are all adults now, and I'm sure I'm going to learn some things that I didn't know then now. So then when they have children, we'll be able to pass that information on so they can have the talk comfortably. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Miss Amelia start in. Just how do you want to start, Amelia? Just want to go right into the topic or?
Yeah, and I would like to introduce myself if that's okay first. Yeah, and so hello everyone, good evening, buenas noches. My name is Amelia Leon, and my pronouns are ella, she, and her. I've like Miss Shanya said, I've been teaching sex ed, comprehensive sexual health education in a variety of settings, including middle schools, high schools, juvenile hall, residential homes, substance abuse programs since 2011. So since I graduated from college, and it's it's something that I never imagined myself doing. I kind of fell into the work because it was a need in my community. And I was trained in 2 evidence-based curriculums, and I was given the opportunity to adapt the curriculums so that it would fit the unique needs of my community. And I fell in love with the work. So I continued to do that. And I just recently graduated from the University of San Francisco with a master's in public health. And my focus, my thesis project was around comprehensive sexual health education and how we can support, I say we as educators, support adolescents of color in our unique needs, because there isn't enough. And while things are getting better, it's still not enough. And so the more support and resources and knowledge we can throw at our communities and in a loving, compassionate way, the better. And so that's what I'm hoping to do here, is just support parents, adults, anyone that has a young person in their lives who, who's interested in this topic. And so, yeah, I can just go right in. So first and foremost, I believe that each parent is an expert in their own family. Each parent gets to set expectations and family values that are, traditional, that are maybe created together. Maybe it's what worked well for parents when they were growing up. And maybe they're leaving behind something that didn't work so well for them. And so I personally believe that. I also believe that there is always room to improve, and there are resources and support for parents to have these types of conversations. This education is provided in school settings. So it's California state law that students receive comprehensive sexual health education once in middle school and once in high school. And parents have the right to opt their children out or in. And parents also have the right to look through the material, to ask questions, to meet with the educators, to take the material home and look through it. As someone who has done that work in the classroom, I can tell you that it's all fact-based. It uses medically accurate terminology and knowledge, and it leaves the values to the families. So there are no values or value systems that go into the curriculum in the classroom, or at least there shouldn't be. And so that is all left for the family. And parents are actually, students are actually encouraged to have these conversations with their parents or trusted adults. And hopefully it's the same person, that their parent is their trusted adult. And we also understand that that's not always the case. And so whoever is an adult that they trust, we encourage them to assess those values-based questions with someone who knows them and who loves and who they trust. So I know that was a lot. Anything you want to add, Ms. LaShanya?
No, I have a question. I do have some questions, but the first question I have is, and I do appreciate, like I said, the work you do and the way you broke down how you meet the needs of families. Do you find yourself in a lot of difficult situations with parents? Do they come to you personally, or are you appointed? How does that work, or is it a little bit of both? And then when you are engaged with the parents, do you find challenging situations more than success?
Thank you for that question. Really important to talk about. So I've had different roles as someone who provides this education in the classroom, in the community. I am that point person. And so parents definitely reach out to me. They have in the past. I have heard everything from, oh no, my child is not like that. My child does not need that information because they are not like that, right? Whatever that means. So, there's already a stigma, even just attending a program that provides this information. And so I just listen. I hear out their concerns, and I stick to the facts of what the curriculum is about. A lot of the concerns that come up are when it comes to those value-based topics. And when I say values-based, I'm talking about things like sex before marriage, or multiple sex partners, or abortion, even contraception use. and sexuality, orientation, how someone identifies, those things. Of course, we give students all the information that we have to by law, which includes pregnancy options. So if a person in the state of California is pregnant, they do have options, depending on where they are at in their pregnancy. As an educator, I am required to provide all students that information. As far as guiding them into what they should do, that is not something that I do, or any educator does. And so we encourage students to talk to their parent, to their trusted adult, about what are the values that the family has, what are the expectations that the family has around these topics. That is a job for the parent, and we encourage that.
Appreciate you saying that. That really makes sense. And I'm glad you did hit on all those areas, because again, family dynamics are different and it looks different.
Mhm.
And parents, we want to push our values on our young adults, and that may not be what they want. And to, again, how to address that can be very tricky. So I guess my next question is also, when it comes down to the gender roles, is it more difficult? I'm going to say, is it more difficult to talk to the father than it is the mother? Or how does that work? Especially if you're talking to him about his son or the daughter. Do you find challenges in that area as well, or success?
Yeah, another really good question. Looking back, I have mainly spoken to mothers. And for a variety of reasons. My work has been primarily within the Latinx community, and specifically with farm worker families. And so, those work hours vary. There's a time when people start work, but then there's no end time. And so when I'm available, or, I make myself available throughout the whole day. And usually it's the mothers that reach out. Maybe because I'm also, a woman, and they might feel more comfortable. I have had a handful of fathers. And again, the concern is always about that fear, I think, that parents have, regardless of if this information is presented to their kid or not, right? It's that fear of, is my child going to be safe? Is my child going to know what to do? Are they going to make the right decision? Are they going to make a mistake? How are these decisions going to impact their future, right? Those questions exist whether or not I provide this information to their kids. And what I tell them is that, your children are exposed to these messages. They're exposed to this information, and oftentimes it's misinformation. What we do in the classroom or in the program, the time we spend together, is we debunk a lot of myths. We go over accurate information, and students get a space to talk about what they've heard, and then they become a resource for their peers, to then do that, the same thing, to share that knowledge. If they hear a myth, they can say, like, oh wait, I just went through my class and that's actually wrong. Here are the facts, and I've seen those conversations. I've overheard those conversations happen at schools, outside of the classroom. And so yeah, we again, my experience has been mostly with mothers, and the few fathers that do reach out have similar concerns.
So I'm going to here and just kind of bring in and acknowledge the ones that has come in. There's our king. Look, Amelia, look who joined us. Hey, Kenya, the shy one that wouldn't talk about the subject. This is Miss Amelia Leon, and she's my co-worker with Her Health First. The subject we're talking about tonight on the Mama Bear Show is how to have the talk with your teenagers around sex education. So please join in on questions. I've already asked a few. I have a lot more, but I don't want to be the only one speaking because I know you guys have questions as well. If you don't have teenagers, you're going to have some soon. And Mr. Lucas of a United and Guided, he's my tech person. He will be, actually has his hand raised. He'll be looking in the chat to answer any questions that may be in the chat. So with further ado, I'm gonna let him speak. Go ahead, Mr. Lucas.
All right, well, thank you, Amelia. Thank you, I appreciate that. Appreciate all that information. And my question was around, because you said something very interesting about working with the Latinx community. And, you know, how does that sex education work? Are there still some level of traditional values? You know, when it goes, I can only imagine like a dad, a Latino father, and like, oh, my child's gonna learn about sex education and they're 13, 12. So, you know, do you ever have to deal with that, or, you know, or is that just a myth? Or, you know, how do you feel like the moms and dads feel together?
You know, I have experienced that, not just from fathers, also from mothers. You know, that those gender norms are still very real. And I believe it is, you know, direct consequence from the history of, you know, the people I come from, colonization, you know, and being oppressed, and then that being carried out in family dynamics. And so it is definitely something that I've experienced, and it's also true for other like racial identities that I've worked with. You know, those gender norms, that machismo, unfortunately isn't just in the Latinx community. I have seen it in others. You know, I do my part within my community of deconstructing what that means. And students actually get an opportunity to reconstruct what machismo means. So a quick example is like, how have you seen this play out in your community, in your family? Students write it out, and then we go through the list and we say, well, we don't like that aspect, but what if machismo means taking care of your community in a really positive way? And so we redefine it and redefine that expectation. And then it's like simple things like, hey, delaying sexual activity is a way that I can protect my community, and I am being a real man if I do that. You know, or wearing a condom is something that I can do, and that makes me a real woman. You know, so things like that, where but it's a process, right? We first talk about what we see, and then we sort of process and then reconstruct to a way that benefits our well-being.
Thank you.
Very good answer. Very structured. Does anyone else have questions anyone else? I know half y'all not, I know all y'all not shy. Ask questions. Get engaged, please. Amelia, I have another question as well. When it comes down to confidentiality with the scholar or the student and the parent, I'm sorry, because I was a parent, I was there, so I know. I was a teenage parent once upon a time. So how do you handle that? How is that handled? Because it's a fine line, because I'm the parent and that's my child and I need to know what's going on. But then again, that's the confidential, or that's what's going on with the scholar. So how do you handle that?
Oh, Miss LaShanya, appreciate all your questions. And I know other folks have them, so thank you. You're doing a great job asking these questions. So one of the first things that I remind students about is I am a mandated reporter. Every adult that they work with in the school, from their teacher to their principal to the custodian, is a mandated reporter. If students share, there's three things that we have to report. If students share that that someone is hurting them, that they're thinking about hurting themselves or someone else, that is something that we have to report. Now, in my classes, when I've taught sex ed, that's one of the agreements, is that we're not there to discuss personal stories. And I say that because I like to have those boundaries where, if they ask me a personal question, I respond and I say, remember our group agreements, no personal questions, right? I'm not here to ask you about your personal life. I'm just here to provide information that applies to people of all ages, myself included. So, and then we move on with the curriculum. I also, if students start sharing stories, I remind them, like, we also have another agreement of what is said here stays here, except for information, right? Except for any knowledge that they get around prevention, around healthy relationships, that is, for them to share with everyone. However, any personal stories, it's the expectation is that it stays in the classroom. However, I remind them, just because that's an agreement doesn't mean everyone's going to follow it. So before we share something, let's think about how would I feel if someone spoke about what I said outside of the classroom, right? And if I don't like that, then I'm not going to share it. So just reminding them of, like, their personal, like, they have that self-agency. They can choose what they share and what they choose to keep private. And we all have that right. If they start talking about other people's experiences, I remind them, like, we're not here to talk about others. We're just here to get information.
Thank you so much for that. Again, I'm an experienced mother of former teenagers, now adults, and those conversations were hard in the iron. There were situations where I didn't know what to do, but didn't want to, again, follow in the path of my parents, who were, like I said, not close to it, just didn't know how to have the conversation, right? And establish that. So we tried our best with ours. Does anyone, Mr. Johnson, have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, what's the setup look like? It's been a long time since I've been in a sex education class setup. What does the setup look like? Like, what is the class setup? How does does it start with, like, just a basic introduction?
Yes. So it traditionally starts with group agreements. Because this topic is so different than any other topic at school. It's different than math and English. We like to establish agreements that might already be the norm, but we like to remind them, like, for these conversations, for this program, these are the agreements. We make sure that everyone agrees, and then we just go through, usually it's a curriculum. And so there are a variety of curriculums designed to prevent STIs and pregnancies among adolescents. They have variations depending on the target population, but for the most part, they're very similar in the topics that they cover. And so, I always like to start with, like, identity, and that reflective piece around what is my own identity, and each student has an opportunity to think about that. What is a healthy relationship? Maybe what are red flags? The cycle of abuse, and then we get into that like prevention piece. So condoms, what are they, how to use them, and that is in high school. In middle school, it's only conversations about condoms. In high school, there is a condom demonstration with an actual condom, and then a wooden model for the condom demonstration. And then STIs, conversations about STIs, treatment options, ways to prevent it. And then there's a big focus around destigmatizing, especially the conversation about HIV and pregnancies, as well as now human trafficking and prenatal care is actually also addressed.
Okay, and what's the age limit? Because we know a lot of the high school kids, they don't really start getting active in the parenthood. Some of them doing high school, but a lot as they start getting into their 20s. Does that class something they offer in junior colleges and university? Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, there is nothing like mandated. Right now it's the education code, right? The ed code that's the legislation, and it started in 2016. So all the topics I covered, that's within that law. And it's very comprehensive. And then I don't think there's anything else in junior college or universities. There might be like classes, but it's unless it's like for a specific degree, it could just be an elective.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your questions.
See, Mr. Lucas has his hand up. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for that. Appreciate the question. Mr. Lucas has his hand up.
Yeah, so I see that this is part of a school curriculum, and I heard you say that there are several curricula. What is there like a person or like a designated position in the schools if these kids have more questions, right? Let's say they go through the program and now they have personal questions. They know they can't do that in the community agreements. Is there somebody that they may be able to be referred to, or is there somebody that can pick up that slack?
I mean, there should be, and for example, I don't want to put Miss Kenya Owens on the spot, but she is our health navigator at Her Health First, and that's actually her position. Her position is for students, that power stance. Her position is to support students in that. So they'll go through a curriculum, a program, and if they have further questions, or if they would like to maybe go to the clinic because something's going on, they would contact Miss Kenya Owens with Her Health First, and she would provide that support for students.
The thing is, it's not enough of her or Amelia.
Right.
But Kenya, are you gonna chime in because you love me? I'm your little sister. Are you gonna chime in just a little bit, kind of? Thank you.
So yes, I am the health navigator, and my role is because sometimes kids are very afraid to talk to their parents. And one of the things that when we do these classes, we try to talk to kids about having someone that's their trusted adult besides us. And if a kid cannot find a trusted adult or don't feel comfortable, then I do give them my telephone number. I also let them know their rights to leave school. They can leave school to go get tested for STIs, to go get an abortions, to not like if they have a cold or need to get a physical, but for those other services. And if they are scared, I will go and support them. Not so I won't support for the abortions, but I definitely will go with them to support them for pregnancy test, STI. And while I'm there with them, I'm always encouraging them to talk to a trusted adult as well.
Thank you, ladies.
Kenya.
Y'all don't let Kenya fool you, because there's more than one hat. This girl is good in parenting classes. This woman is an expert across the board when it comes to parenting, teen pregnancy, teen sex education. Don't let her fool you. She wears more than one hat. Very knowledgeable and has been doing this for a long time. A long time. But
thank you.
anyone else? Then you're welcome. You know, I'm gonna give you your kudos, girl. Anyone else have questions? Go ahead.
There's something that I wanted to add. In the state of California, young people have the right, like Miss Kenya said, to, I think it's starting at the age of 12, to leave school and to receive those confidential services on sensitive topics, which includes anything reproductive related. And so what this means, and this makes a lot of parents nervous. So I do want to take some time to talk a little bit about what that means and what you as a parent can do to talk to your kids about this, given that it is a right that they have. And this isn't new. This is something that has existed for a long time. But because it was such a touchy subject, schools just didn't talk about it. So students just didn't know that this was a right that they had. And so they can actually sign themselves out of school, and the parent won't get notified. And the only reason they can leave is to go to the doctor, to get a specific service around reproductive health. So like Ms. Kenya mentioned, anything from getting tested for pregnancies, for STIs, to treatment, to get birth control, to pick up their birth control. Now, something that parents can do is that, they can talk to their kids about this, and they can tell them I know that this is a right that you have. And as your parent, I would like to know, if this is a service that you're going to use, so that I can support you as well, so that you don't have to go through this alone. Right. And so, this conversation, the talk, ideally shouldn't happen just once. It's an ongoing conversation, and it actually starts in infancy. As you all know, if you have little ones, babies explore themselves, and toddlers get messages all the time around baby showers. If they see, an auntie that's pregnant, an older cousin that's pregnant, there's questions around it. And so they're getting messages, right, their whole lives. And so those are all opportunities to have these types of conversations in a way that's age appropriate. And I can share a link where you can read more about what's age appropriate. And we can add it to whenever we post this, we'll just link all those resources. Reading books, there's a lot of books nowadays around these topics. And so reading together, and then I know for a lot of adults, myself included, it's keeping up with the information that's out there, right? So this is like a lifelong education that we're going to participate with our kids in. And you know, we will also learn along the way. And each kid is different, right? So what works with, you know, the oldest one might be different from the youngest, or, you know, and so the take home message is that this conversation shouldn't just happen once, and you're allowed to do redos, right? If maybe you have a slip up, you don't know the answer to something that they're asking, or give them misinformation, you can always circle back and say like, hey, you know, last week we had a conversation about this and I just learned that I was actually misinformed. And this is the correct information. And I just wanted to make sure you received it. What are your thoughts around that? You know? And it's just leaving doors open for your kid to know that they can come back to you.
And that's important as parents, something that I continue to practice, because you will not perfect it. You want to draw the line between being their friend, but not the friend, but a support system. And I know I sometimes do this now, and especially when they were a teenager, I would say, they'll come to me with some wild stuff. And I'm like, oh, instead of saying something I was going to regret, and it shuts my baby down, and then they won't feel comfortable with talking to me. My response would be, let mommy think about that. Let me research that. And then we'll come back, because I don't know right now. And it's okay to say that. And I think that's another challenge too with parents. They don't have that relationship with their babies. And it's probably because they didn't have the relationship. But when you know better, you do better. And you will want to do better because you don't want to make those same mistakes. So I'm going to get into another question. My other question, I wanted to go back to something you said about you have the right to leave campus to go get the services. Now, I'm gonna age myself out, but I remember, I don't know if it was around longer than this, but I remember in about probably 91 or 92, I went with my cousin. She had went to get tested because she knew she was pregnant. And I remember going into the office with her, and she told them what she needed. And then they asked me why I needed. I was like, well, I'm her support system. Mm-hmm. So we didn't get marked truant for that day or absent for that day because we had a valid excuse. So I don't know if it's been around longer than that, but I do know that it's something that exists. And it didn't dawn on me till you just said that. Well, that's a great tool to know, to let scholars know that they have that right to do that. Absolutely. Anyone else have a question? Because I have one more pressing question, or a couple of more, but at least this last one. Does anyone else, because we can go on this all night. It's it's about 7:10. So I appreciate, again, thank you, Kenya, for chiming in. Emilia, thank you so much for being the guest. You both have. Emilia doing a great job. I plan on having you guys come back quarterly, because this is a topic we're not going to, Emilia is the one that brought up the idea just to talk about it and leave it here. It's something that needs to be continuously talked about. And hopefully next time I can get some questions from parents, and we can have a dialogue that way. How do you, or have you seen, my question is, a difference when you started this now, increase, or the increase in teen pregnancy STDs in the past as before now? Have you seen the numbers increase, and are more scholars coming to you with more openness, wanting to know before they make that choice rather than after the choice has been made? If that question makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm so glad you asked it. And I think this is like one of the best platforms to discuss that in, because as many of you might know, there has been like a societal national shift around this topic, since like the 90s. And so nationally, there has definitely been a decline in teen pregnancy rates, as well as in the state of California. Overall, there has been a decline. However, if we zoom into the data, while it is going down, the rates for our adolescents of color are still higher than the average. So while, yes, it's important to celebrate, like there is a decline, we still have to look at what's going on in the lives and in our communities, right? And the type of unique support needed for our young girls and boys of color. And that looks different for each community, right? And again, like when I started this, I was working specifically with the Latinx, a lot of immigrant families, first generation English learners. So a lot of like factors, and I come with that identity as well. And so I was able to adapt the curriculum to fit those specific needs. And I think that's what it takes, right? And so while I might be, because of the years of experience that I have, people might consider me an expert, but when I go to a different community, I am not the expert. I can share the knowledge, I can share what I know and what has worked well in my community, but that's going to be totally different for what is needed for your specific group, and the unique challenges and needs. And only people from those communities have that knowledge. And I think that's where we can start, and build those skills, so that we do the right thing. We owe it to the young people. So
that is it. That our common interest, we should have their heart at common. At the end of the day, it's all about them. And I have one more part, two-part fold to that question. Second part is, since the pandemic, has there been an increase? Has it been, have you seen it more so you need to teach and more so you need to advocate versus before demic happened?
Yeah. So as you all know, with data, when data comes out, it's already outdated, right? And so we're not there yet with the data. We don't have those numbers of what was actually happening, but I can guess that it is definitely needed more due to the increase of screen time, right? So students of all ages, all of a sudden were in school virtually. They were doing their homework. They were meeting with friends virtually. And so their access to technology, to the internet increased. So their access to information around these topics also increased. And we know that not everything that we read, especially online, is accurate. And so the need for education like this, I think has increased just for that simple fact. And I saw Miss Kenya had her hand up.
Yes, Kenya had your hand.
I did have my hand up, but you said it. So I was just going to talk about the internet as well.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have questions? Anything in the chat we want to talk about?
You know what? I did want to say something in regards to, I started teaching sex ed in the early 2000s. And so for me, I definitely see a different change. The education, the questions that kids are having, the things that the kids are going through, the sexual positions that they will ask us about. They are although kids seem like they're very shy to talk about it, they're very open and want the information. Kids really want the proper education. They want to have an open communication with their parents as well. And so I noticed that for me in the early 2000, kids kind of was like, I'm not talking to my parents about that, or they would be shy about it. And now they want all the information. So that's the change that I've seen.
Thank you so much for chiming in on that. Really, truly appreciate it. We're at 7:17, where the show is coming to an end, but I just want to again thank both of you, Kenya. Thank you, Miss Amelia, for coming on. Again, this is a topic that I know when I was coming up, didn't have the education. My mom and dad was like, no, that's basically telling me that sex was bad. It's not a good right? You can't have no babies. You that's gonna see that you know, and find myself as a parent, I was not going to be that way. Right. There's it's okay. There's this totally natural. It's a natural thing. There's a responsibility that comes with it. That's what I would say to mine. There's a response. Once you go there, once you cross the line, it's a responsibility, changes in your body and all of that. That was the best I can say. And then just be open to the questions they would come to me with. Luckily, the husband was alive and he could talk to the boys, and I was talking to the girls. So luckily, and that's probably why I'm so sensitive about the subject, because there are a lot of, with social media, misguided information, making it just easy, inaccurate information for our scholars. And I think proper education, it's okay. And you're right, scholars will come and they will ask if they feel comfortable. I do agree with that totally. And then just one more thing. Mental health, Kenya knows mental health is my thing. It's just, I'm just all over it. How do I phrase this question? Do you feel like the two goes hand in hand, that if a reason why they would be is because they may be or engage in sexual activities because they may be experiencing some type of mental health breakdown, and just find it as a comfort or find it as something, that would bring them comfort because they don't know how to deal with the mental health issue. Do you guys feel they go hand in hand? And have you had any situations, or I know that's not your area of expertise, it's just not becoming mine, kind of, sort of, but.
That's such an important question. And thank you so much for bringing that up, because given the statistics, we know, our young people, and especially our scholars of color, our young scholars of color are impacted at higher rates for, I think, reasons that we already know, right? Society just doesn't show up for them the way it needs to. This is related. So this is what came up for me as you were asking this question, and I'm sure Ms. Kenya has a similar experience where you can tell based on the question which students come with that trauma around abuse, whether it's sexual, and we know the stats, right? We know the statistics of children and experiences around that, and you can tell as educators based on the questions that they ask, based on how they show up in the classroom. And sexual health education, when done correctly by someone who understands the complexity and the sensitivity, can actually be a tool to help prevent sexual abuse. It can also reduce bullying, delay sexual intimacy, increase the use of contraception when young people decide to have sex, and so it also supports social and emotional learning. And so there's a lot of benefits outside of just preventing pregnancy or preventing STIs, which is important and which is great, right? But there's also a lot of those that mental health benefits that just now people are starting to like research and put together, right? Before it was just speculation, like, oh, there's a correlation, but now it's like, no, this is a direct result of X, Y, and Z. So so yeah, thank you for asking that question. And I hope I answered it. And Miss Kenya, if you have anything to add.
I'm sorry. What was the question? Was it in regards to mental health?
Mhm.
Okay.
You already know, Kenya. You already, yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
coming from you, I definitely know
You
that
already
that would be
know.
a question. So what I have experienced is in regards to mental health, a lot of times with the young adults, they haven't been diagnosed, right? And so if you think about it, it takes sometimes adults a long time to get diagnosed or accept their diagnosis. So a lot of times those behaviors that we see, it might be associated with it, but we don't have a diagnosis to compare that this behavior goes with this because there's no diagnosis. That's what I notice, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Thank you, Miss Kenya.
I appreciate it. And please excuse me, I had to, hold on, I had to get my charger because my computer said low battery. And the worst thing we don't want is to be in the middle of this and it cuts out.
Oh no, I think she may have gotten cut out. Any other questions?
Thank you so much, Amelia. And I think Mr. Shanya is trying to get her computer technical thing back together. But that's great. I still want to open it up if there's any other questions for Miss Amelia or Miss Kenya, please ask them. And we'll give it a couple seconds here. I think everybody. There she is.
I don't have any more questions, but I just wanted to say thank you to your guys. This is Richard Johnson with United and Guided. There's my camera. But I just want to say thank you guys for sharing all that wonderful information.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I don't have any question either, but hi guys.
Hi.
Hello, Miss Alexis.
Hi,
I'm sorry
Alexis.
I'm late. We just came off a call, but hi.
Congratulations. I know what you were doing. Congratulations to you, Miss Dula. Congratulations to you. Yes. We're going to have this. Alexis is another one of the beautiful ladies that work for Her Health First. And she has a teenage daughter. So, well, she's almost a grown lady, but she's 2, 3. But we're going to do this again, Alexis. It's about, I think we have about 5 more minutes in the time. We're going to do this. It's going to be something that's going to be reoccurring. We're going to bring Miss Kenya and Miss Amelia. Notice how I said that, Amelia. Miss Kenya and Miss Owens back on the show so that we can have this reoccurring conversation around the topic of how to have a talk with your teenagers, your preteens about sex education. It's an important. Advocacy is great.
Yes, it is important.
Yes, it is. So again, I want to thank everyone. Does anyone else have questions before we wrap it up?
Or any comments?
Comments, feedback, yes. And also we'll do our best to, I'll see if Miss Amelia can put something together and we can send it out. Yes. This show will air again, most likely more than once, but probably towards the end of the week, we'll replay this show. So we'll always try to make sure that we do a live and then we do a repeat of the show And this, again, is important. So I'm such an advocate and I'm passionate about mental health, sex education, young adults, because they are our future and they are misguided, right? And we are the elders and we're supposed to know and supposed to support. Mr. Lucas, you had a question?
So I just wanted to thank you all for participating today. We had a great turnout. I think that everybody on the call participated. I really appreciate all of that, and that's just great communication. We hope that we can continue to do this. The Mama Bear Show happens every Sunday at 6:30. We're on the same Zoom call. There will be lots of great information to share. So we would like to invite you all back to another episode in the future. Ms. Shanya will connect with you. And I just want to thank you again for being here. I had a great time.
Okay, guys. Thank you, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you.
It's awesome. Mr. Lucas, could you put up our website, United and Guided?
Yes.
Just want to.
Oh, and then also, if you would like to see a recording of this particular episode, I actually added that to the chat. So if you need the link, you can go and see yourselves right away and begin the video all over again if you'd like. And then I will also write our website, which is www.unitedandguided.org. And we are a community-based organization, and we work in our community serving by outreach and conflict mediation, and just recently training our employees to be mental health peer support specialists, right? To be Medi-Cal qualified. So congratulations to them, and we're just happy to keep it all moving. All right,
That's what I was talking
to the chat. If you care to copy and paste it, feel free. Otherwise, I think we're at a goodbye until next time.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, men. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. All right.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Ooh, good.